Welcome to the Think Self-Publishing Podcast, where we talk all things self-publishing, making money online, and reaching your goals. If you enjoy the podcast, make sure you sign up for the free video seminar, Confessions of a Self-Publisher, and discover 7 powerful rules for publishing in today's competitive marketplace. Go to thinksp.net/confessions to join. Now here's your host, James, and let's get started with the show.
Welcome to the Think Self-Publishing Podcast, Episode 6. In this episode, we're going to talk about passive income and if you can truly achieve truly passive income. So without beating around the bush and wasting a lot of time, I want to get straight to the point. In my opinion, truly passive income does not exist if you are going to start a business for yourself. So my definition of passive income is a fixed amount of money that you would receive on a consistent basis, over a certain amount of time, with no work involved in continuing to make that money or maintain that level of money. So personally for me, I don't think this exists, right? I don't think it's possible for you to start a business, make a certain amount of money, every month or every couple of weeks, and then maintain that same amount of money with no work. I don't think that's possible, So anyone listening to this, if you have an example of a truly passive business that requires absolutely no work, to maintain the income that the business makes, I want you to give me an example, and I would really like for you to post a comment below or leave a review and tell me, show me, give me an example, explain to me what this business is, Because personally, I really don't think it's possible if you're going to start a business for yourself, I would argue that the only types of passive income that you can make is really like a fixed income from the government, like a pension or maybe like dividend payments from like stock purchase. But if you're going to start your own business, I don't think that there's a such thing as passive income. So rather than saying passive income, I like to say fairly passive income, which to me means generating a predictable amount of money over a certain period of time with a minimal amount of work to maintain that income. Self-publishing, as I teach it, self-publishing as I know it, self-publishing to me is an example of fairly passive income, not completely passive income, Because no matter what, no matter how you self-publish, there's always going to be work involved in maintaining your income doing this, Now, I don't want to scare people away and make it seem like there's so much work involved in maintaining a certain level of money, because that's not true, right? The work with self-publishing can be minimal, So after you've built up a large number of books in your account, the work you would have to put in every week to maintain the amount of money you're making, it's going to be minimal, right? Depending upon how you do it. But for me, I found that 2 to 5 hours a week of work is enough to maintain the amount of money you're making with self-publishing. So in my opinion, I would classify this type of a business where you're putting in 2 to 5 hours a week of work to maintain the money you're making. I would argue that this is fairly passive, right? It's not completely passive because you still have to put in that 2 to 5 hours of work each week if you want your income to stay the same and not decrease, So in my experience personally with Kindle publishing, when I'm saying that you're going to have to put in 2 to 5 hours a week of work, what I'm referring to is running promotions, So you're going to have to each week run free promos on your books to keep your sales consistent, So and continually running free promos is a strategy that I use to keep the sales the same, and I found that your sales may decrease a little bit one month to the next, but it's not going to decrease drastically. And realistically, it's going to stay the same. And personally, I've found that running free promos consistently the same days with a lot of books, right? Let's say you have a lot of books in your account, so you can run larger promos each week. I've actually found that your digital sales on Kindle will increase over time if you keep doing this. But the reality is, you still have to put in some work each week with self-publishing. So, and most of the work is going to be marketing. So I would argue that's not passive because you still have to put in some work. Okay. Now, I'll also say that if you want to grow your income, right, with self-publishing, you have to publish more books. And when you're trying to increase your income with self-publishing and you're publishing more books, this business of self-publishing is absolutely not passive. Okay? Because there's going to be a significant amount of work that you have to do on each book before you can publish it. Okay, so when you're in the beginning of self-publishing, it's not passive. So don't think that it's going to be passive, because there's going to be a significant amount of work you're going to have to do in the beginning to grow your income. And then let's say you're making a certain amount of money each month and you want to increase that income, then you're going to have to put in essentially the same amount of work, okay, to increase your income. So there is a good amount of work that has to be done with self-publishing if you're just going to start it, or if you want to grow your income. Okay, if you want to maintain your income, then the amount of work is very minimal. You can put in 2 to 5 hours per week just running free promos, doing some marketing stuff, and your income will stay the same. Or your income will stay about the same. And so I would argue that that's a fairly passive business, not a purely passive business. Okay, so there are some people who will argue that you should hire VAs to do everything in your Kindle publishing business if you're publishing nonfiction books, and you should legitimately have a VA to do everything, right? So you would have a VA who uploads your books, you would have a VA who proofreads, who formats, you have a VA that does like legitimately everything, right? So some of these people might hear this and say, oh, well, that's passive, right? That's not passive in my opinion, right? Because if you have a team of VAs doing everything, okay, you still have to spend time managing your VAs, okay? And VA means virtual assistant, right? So somebody who's really new, they might not know what VA means. VA stands for virtual assistant, and it's just someone you hire, you give them a specific task, they have to do that task each week, and you're going to pay them each week, okay? So there's some people who argue, if you're self-publishing, you should hire VAs to do everything in your business. And, if you did that and you hired someone to do everything, then it would be passive, okay? Then the business would be passive. And I would argue to these people, it's not passive, because you're going to have to spend time managing your VAs, okay? You're going to have to watch what they're doing, look at the work they're submitting, and make sure they're doing the work the right way. Make sure that the work is of a certain quality, okay? And there's even some people who will come and say, well, if you have a big team of VAs, then you should hire another VA to manage your VAs, okay? And in my opinion, I would say hiring a VA to manage other VAs, I would say that's a waste of money, because in my opinion, the reality is, if you have a team of VAs and you give them clearly defined jobs and clearly defined responsibilities, you shouldn't need to hire someone else to manage them, in my opinion, because the amount, if their jobs are clear, then you should only have to put in a few hours per day or a few hours per week to just check their work and make sure everything is, and make sure they're following just the guidelines that you've set. Okay, so to hire a VA to manage your VAs, I think that that's a waste of money. And then even then, it's still not passive, because you still have to watch your manager and you have to check. And at least for me, I would still check, the work of everyone to make sure that, everyone's on point, even with the manager. Okay, so what is the point of this podcast? The point is, if you're going to start your own business to try and make your own money, there's no such thing as passive income. So if you want to self-publish and you want to be successful with self-publishing, then you should count on doing at least a few hours per week of work at a minimum to maintain your income once you've grown your income to a certain level. And if you want to be successful with your income and really grow it, right, and reach a higher amount of royalties, then you should realize that this is going to require a significant amount of work, especially in the beginning, right? So in my opinion, truly passive income is a myth. Okay. And if you're seeking truly passive income, then I would say that you should seek fairly passive income instead, right? And try to find a business that is easily maintained with a minimum amount of work each week. And I would argue self publishing is an example of this type of business.
If you enjoyed the podcast and you found some value in it, then I recommend that you go to thinksp.net/confessions, okay, and you sign up to get the free video seminar, Confessions of a Self-Publisher, where I talk about 7 rules that I've learned over the last 2 to 3 years of publishing that I think will really improve your chances with self-publishing, especially if you haven't gotten started yet. So go to thinksp.net/confessions to get Confessions of a Self-Publisher, and stay tuned for more episodes.